You pick up your phone. There's notifications, messages, likes, replies, and yet you still feel it. That quiet, hollow, sinking feeling underneath all of it. It's not exactly sadness. It's more like being surrounded by loads of people and yet still being unseen by all of them. You're present everywhere and yet truly nowhere. We are the most connected generation in human history. There are more ways to reach more people than any civilization before us. And half of all adults still report meaningful loneliness. Welcome to Perspectus, a channel where we break down ideas, concepts, and moments of history. We're looking to build a community of people who are committed to growth, perspective, and understanding. If that's you, then you're in the right place. Here's what I want you to consider. Loneliness is not a personal failing. It isn't a weakness or an introversion or something broken in your character. If you have felt it, you're responding exactly as a human being should to an environment that was quietly redesigned around something other than our human needs. The research points to something more structural, something that was dismantled over the past 50 years. Most of us have no idea it happened. By the end of this, hopefully we'll understand what was taken apart, why it matters more than most public health conversations, and what actually helps. Think about who you picture when you think about a lonely person. You probably think of an older person living alone, the world gradually contracted. That image is so culturally fixed that most of us don't even question it. But the data tells us a completely different story. In 2023, the United States Surgeon General did something unusual. He issued a formal advisory declaring loneliness as a public health epidemic, placing it alongside obesity, addiction, and smoking as a crisis requiring national response. This wasn't a cultural observation, but a medical declaration. And the figures behind this cut against every assumption. In the 16 to 24 age group, there are reports of loneliness at roughly 3 times the rate of people aged 65 to 74. 73% of Gen Z, the generation that grew up with social media as a native feature, they say they feel lonely sometimes or all the time. That compares to 45% of baby boomers. The most connected generation in history is statistically the loneliest. Stop with that for a second. If more connection was actually the solution, then the most connected individuals would be thriving, and yet they're struggling the most. This means connection and contact are not the same thing. We have been measuring them wrong the entire time. What the data is telling us, and what most people are missing when this discussion gets brought up, is that the feeling of being known is not the same as the number of people who know your name. Presence is not the same as proximity, and we built an entire social infrastructure on the assumption that they were the same. So, what is this actually doing to you? Most of us treat loneliness as a mood, something to push through. You wait it out, you fill the gap with enough noise or consumption, and eventually it passes. This doesn't work, and there's a psychological reason why. John Cacioppo spent decades at the University of Chicago studying the biology of loneliness. What he found should genuinely change the way you think about your own experience. He found that chronic loneliness triggers a sustained stress response, cortisol. This is the primary stress hormone, and it rises and it stays elevated. The immune system starts to malfunction. Inflammatory markers increase, and the body's repair system begins working against itself. Over time, this raises the risk of cardiovascular disease by 29%, strokes by 32%, and the premature death by the same margin. His most striking finding was the health impact of chronic loneliness is roughly equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Here's why that happens. For most of human history, isolation was extremely dangerous. Being cut off from the group meant a real physical threat. There was no protection, no shared resources. There's no way to survive alone. So over time, the brain evolved to treat loneliness as an emergency. The same alarm system that fires when you're being followed also fires when you feel unseen by the people around you. The body can't tell the difference, and a body running that alarm on low continuously for months and years eventually degrades. You probably know the feeling, even if you've never named it this way, the restlessness at the end of the day that no amount of television or YouTube resolves. The tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. The sense that something is missing without being able to pinpoint it. That's not a personality quirk. That's an alarm that was never meant to be running for this long. And the reason so many of us are dealing with it now isn't because people have become less compatible or capable of connection. It's because something is wrong with the environment. So what was quietly removed? Cast your mind back to the last time you went somewhere regularly, not for work or an appointment, just somewhere you went because you went there. An example of this could be the same pub on the same evening, or the same gym class, maybe the same bench in a park and you'd see the same faces. These aren't friends, but they're not strangers either, just people whose presence are a regular in your week. If you have somewhere like that, you already know what it does to you. If you don't, you might not have a name for what you're missing. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg spent years studying what he called third places. Third places are spaces that are neither home nor work. The pub, the barbershop, the coffee shop. Somewhere where they might know your order. A community hall, the park. These are sort of places where you can share a specific character or trait. They're accessible, they're regular, and they're completely free of an agenda. You don't exactly go there to achieve something, but you go there because it's familiar or it's something you enjoy doing. And when you have this as part of your routine, other people do too, and the same faces tend to be there. The absence of agenda is the whole point. Most of our social life now is either transactional or simply performative. We meet to do something or we perform connection on a platform. Third places are the exception to this. Spaces where you could just exist among people without needing a reason. Oldenburg documented their sharp decline from the 1970s onward. This was driven by suburban design built around cars rather than foot traffic, the privatization of leisure, and the retreat of entertainment into the home rather than being exterior to it. As they disappeared, something else went with them. The accidental encounter. Sociologists call this weak ties. The low-stakes, repeated, unplanned contact with people who are neither close friends nor strangers. Research on weak ties consistently shows they matter far more to well-being than you'd expect. The acquaintance on your commute, or the person who knows your coffee order, or the neighbour whose name you know, but whose life you don't, these connections aren't very deep, but they are extremely regular. And regularity, it turns out, is much of what makes a person feel a part of something. Hannah Arendt wrote about the human need to appear before others. This isn't to perform, but it's simply to feel seen, to be witnessed in the ordinary acts of living life. That's what third places gave people. Quiet, unremarkable witnesses. No one was thinking of it as philosophy. It just happened because the space existed. We built a society that removed most of that architecture, and now we act surprised when most people feel alone. So finally, what is the platform that promised to fix this? Into that gap came social media. And in fairness, the promise wasn't that unreasonable. It was meant to rebuild connection at scale, not dependent on geography or scheduling. And there's no need for a third place when you have this sort of platform. And everyone, slowly but surely, bought into it. On paper, this concept is amazing. You can find someone that you maybe fell out of touch with, or you can keep in contact with someone that lives in another country. You can maintain relationships no matter where you are. And you have the small pleasure of being known in some way. But in reality, it wasn't quite the same. The data started coming in. Heavy social media users are 3 times more likely to report social isolation than those who use it less. More specifically, people who turn to social media because they feel lonely, who only go online to relive the ache of it, consistently come away emptier than when they started. And this is why I think we're seeing more and more today of people trying to detox from social media. The mechanism is something researchers call the authenticity visibility paradox. The more visible you become online, the more curated the version of yourself you present, which we all do. You frame the photo a certain way, you spend ages choosing the caption to your post, or you post an achievement so you can show off to all these other people, some of who you don't even know. And yet no one posts the struggle. And you do this, and so does everyone else around you. This results in a platform full of people performing for connection, rather than having any actual meaningful ones. All watching each other's highlights, their reels, while quietly assuming everyone else has figured something else out that you haven't. This isn't a character flaw, it's a predictable output of a system optimized for engagement, not belonging. Engagement needs stimulation, and stimulation requires novelty and comparison. And comparison reliably produces dissatisfaction or negativity. Social media isn't worthless. Using it to maintain existing relationships or to find a community that involves shared interests do actually have real value. The problem, though, is treating it as a substitute for real contact. And it was never built to actually replace the physical presence, the shared space, the unremarkable continuity of just being around people without any specific agenda. That's not a design failure. It's more of a category error. And most of us are making it every single day. So, to close, the starting point. There is a distinction that's worth holding on to. Solitude is aloneness, but chosen. The quiet you seek, the space where you meet yourself. However, loneliness is aloneness that's imposed upon oneself. The aching awareness that you are not known, not seen, or not part of something larger than yourself. Solitude can be generative. Loneliness creates chronic and unaddressed sadness. Most of us manage loneliness by not looking directly at it. We fill it with noise or consumption. We watch YouTube, we scroll TikTok, we look at Instagram. We scroll for hours and hours. We reach for the phone because it's a quick alternative rather than acknowledging the uncomfortable situation or feeling. The starting point that actually helps is simpler than that. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It's not an overhaul. It's just honest naming. You need to say to yourself, I'm lonelier than I'd like to be. This is worth taking seriously, and now what? What comes next doesn't require years of therapy or reinvention of your whole character. It requires doing what the last 50 years of social architecture made harder. Showing up somewhere. This has to be regularly and with no particular goal. Go to the same cafe, go to the same park, the same gym class on the same morning. Not to network and not to perform, just to be around people over and over. Eventually, familiarity builds itself. Comfortability grows and connections arise. The weak tie then becomes a known face. A known face that could become a conversation. The conversation over months could quietly grow into a feeling of being part of something. It could lead to a relationship, be it platonic or romantic. We didn't lose this because we became worse people. Instead, we lost the spaces that made it effortless to create these connections. That's the good news, actually, because it means the solution isn't a character overhaul. It's just a decision about where to spend an hour of your day. If you found value in this, make sure to like and subscribe and join the Perspectus community. We're looking to build a meaningful community, and I'd like to hear your perspective, so drop it in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.